What's going on, Facebook and Instagram? Very special guest today, Dawson Sullivan of Sullivan Insurance Group. Before we jump into this, if you haven't called your leads yet, I need you to pause this video, go call your leads, because nothing we're going to talk about here is going to matter unless you call your leads. So go do that first. But Dawson, thanks for jumping on, man. I'd love to kind of go over your experience myself and just talk. You recently joined our pension review advanced appointments for the IUL annuity advanced market type situation. And so wanted to get you on here because you've been absolutely crushing it, as well as we're bringing you in as a coach. So I thought we better put Dawson on the profile so people can see your face. But first, before we dive into that, for the folks that don't know you, maybe you could give us a little history on your experience in the industry, how long you've been in it, what you've been kind of up to thus far.
That's fun. So I actually started out about nearly a decade right after I got out of the Marine Corps, actually. So I started out in P&C, and then after P&C, I was like, all right, I hit my peak. I got my CPCU. I was a sales trainer, countrywide sales trainer. I took a lot of different avenues for that. So home, auto, renters, motorcycle, that stuff was good. The next step was after my company had, I guess you could say, like a paradigm shift. I was like, well, now we can go ahead and take the health, life, and annuities route. Let's add on to the next fields. And then I used this term when I was on Bill Levinson's podcast, because I don't want to throw out any MLMs, but I use the term pink Cadillac. So I went through a couple pink Cadillacs. All right. And obviously with that, there were some that had great training. I started out in the Medicare field and I got into life and then obviously the annuities. It wasn't until about 3 years ago, I networked with some really influential people. I got to meet Michael Savage. So he used to work under Tony Robbins as one of the main, I think he was a CFO, one of the main coaches through there. Mike has been instrumental in my facilitation as well as my mentor, Troy Smith. Those individuals helped out in my actual coaching atmosphere, but I've always been adept when it came to insurance processes. I created a process built off of the Be Your Own Banker by Nelson Nash, which was mainly using whole life for infinite banking. I structure it now through IULs, max funded IULs to be specific, but there's a couple different caveats. So there's only one or two companies that are exclusive to that, but that one I'm writing a book on, which should be available probably in about like 3 or 4 months once I figure publishing out. But that's my main niche. I picked up these leads. It's very rare to have a phone call with somebody and they're excited to talk to you. So that's the funny aspect of like call your leads, right? So these, especially in the advanced market, it's different to have somebody that's excited to speak to you and lay everything out. I dominated that. So I think it was 2000 for the batch, and I'm currently at 98,000 in commission. I had one that fell off, but that's about where I'm at right now in the first batch. Oh, your mic cut out.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Perfect. Not everybody has that result, right? And what do you feel like the key component is? Obviously, you've had a lot of experience in the advanced markets, but what was the biggest hurdle that you had to overcome joining the program? Maybe it was a lack of preparation that we put you through, or anything, I guess. What would be the biggest hurdle that you kind of went through to start getting that result?
I'm gonna give you the biggest hurdle and also the most important aspect about how to use these leads, because I noticed that's where you were going in the initial. The biggest hurdle initially was overcoming the one sale, one approach method. These are not, close it right off the bat. This is all about trust and rapport. You already have a beautiful trust and rapport coming in the door. Like I mentioned, you have people who are excited to talk to you because that's their perception is a little bit different on who you are. And in that sense, my biggest hurdle was coming in and establishing myself as not only the subject matter expert, but acting within a fiduciary duty. That fiduciary duty means, listen, I can coach you on, for example, the discounted ones were in Colorado, Utah, and Indiana. In Colorado, there was Para or UC Health, which had their own total compensation, whatever. I had to come in as an expert with that fiduciary duty and saying, listen, I will coach you on what you can do here. On top of that, acting in that role, I have to advise you in all these other fields. And in those other fields that I'm advising you at, I have to make sure that you have a good range of information. I know it sounds like I'm just throwing it all out there, but I establish that and I plant that seed because my whole goal is, even though I can't touch their current retirement accounts, I'm going to identify what are some opportunities in the household. Let's say one of the wins, we had someone who had about $500,000 in a old 401k that was sitting in a blend account. I coached them on the S&P and the growth orientation around that. And we actually did a 1035 into what I call a GLIA, a guaranteed lifetime income account for deferred compensation. I did that. That was a good win. But the other aspect is just generating referrals. Out of all those people, the biggest hurdle was, in the event I'm not closing it right off the bat, most of the products I'm pushing are maybe 30 to 60 days to receive compensation. So that's the turnover aspect. But then I'll have some, like I had an IUL that I closed. It's a 36,000 commission. That was like a third of the commission that I had pulled through. But that one was just at a sheer, hey, I have this money coming in for my new TSP disability or my veterans disability. I want to invest it. Where do you think I should put it? I'm like, well, you can do this, and then this. And that's where it kind of closed out. The other route, the most important thing, I'll double tap on it, but it's that trust and rapport factor. Again, you have these people who are raw and they want to open up and let you know everything that's going on. So you can't just try to close them on a life insurance case right there. You have to listen to their need, what their emotions are, the situation they're in, and ultimately create a game plan. And then at the very end of it saying, hey, we're going to meet next week. Instead of doing my calendar invite, tell me a time right now that we can schedule. I'll put it for you, and making sure that you're doubling back. But referrals, I used a lot of the referrals out of that. That was huge. So I got about another 15 leads out of those 25.
Now, some folks might not have the knowledge base that you have with different accounts, with different avenues or vehicles for finance. What, and I know you have a team, you have agents underneath you. What's really the stepping stone of knowledge to get to the point where you're at? And how does that look in respects of timeline? You know, how quickly could somebody really start to learn these things? And what do you suggest be the primary focus in learning right off the bat?
I know you're going to look for something specific, and there's going to be somebody that's going to listen to this, and it's probably going to frustrate them. Most of the things that I know now, based on these leads, I learned inside the appointment. I don't know how to run. For example, Fidelity Net Benefits is one of the accounts. All I'd say is, hey, let's pull it up. Let's see what's in your accounts. Now I see a 403B, a 401A, a 557, a government investment plan. I've never seen these a day in my life. I only know TSP from when I was in the military and regular 401ks. So it says, sell it, talk to what you know. But at the same time, when you get off the phone, you have to be advantageous about your growth. I'm Googling. I'm looking up these plans. At the same time, I'm also utilizing a network of people with you guys. I do the same thing. Hey, I had this come up. I'm not sure what this was. Can you give me some information or connect me with somebody? So it was beautiful because right after I got out, I think it was the 10th appointment, I said, listen, I'm having opportunity of things I've never seen before. And then I met with Joel. I believe that was his name. So I'm a resource. I mean, as far as the specific stepping stone, align yourself with people to understand the practice, but have a rubric. Like for me, if I were to just lay it out for anybody, if I'm going whole life, final expense anymore, but Mutual of Omaha. They got COPD, I'll do Continental Aetna. If it's an IUL, Allianz. If it's a GUL, then I'm going Pacific Life. These are the main companies I do. There's rarely any variables because I've already created my, I guess, pecking order of when I use them. Depending on the IMO, that's going to be the most important factor too. Again, I use my resources. So whatever IMO you have currently placed, if you don't have marketing advisors who can just create illustrations for you, that's half my job, and I don't even do it. I say, hey, I got this person. Here's the opportunity in the household. Make me 4 or 5 annuity contracts and give me the selling points. And then I just go and regurgitate. Does that answer your question fully?
Definitely.
Okay.
I guess what's the biggest advantage you've seen with the program itself? And then I'm going to have another question to follow up with that, maybe the negatives. But but what's been the biggest positive for anybody that's looking from the outside in? What's been the greatest thing about the program that you've experienced so far?
It's all about the positivity. Again, I don't have people who are negative. I have people who are a little bit more optimistic about having the conversation with me. Very early on, I was never perfect as an agent. I'm still not. If you ever believe that you are, just understand there's room for growth. I'm always in the mindset of growth. I was a desperate sales individual at one point. I'll kind of coin myself as that because as we all can relate, we're in the insurance industry. Not everybody's just throwing out money left and right. Some people are still in the 40K range and they have financial needs. I was in a position where I had financial needs and I was desperately trying to make sales. And in turn, me desperately trying to make sales, I have people who already don't want to talk to me. So to have this in a little bit more of a comfortable environment to come in and say, hey, I'm the financial professional, whatever you need, here's the goals, let's see what you got. And then establishing that trust and rapport so they can lean on me and actually trust the information I'm giving. That was the biggest advantage for me personally, was just the positive environment. It let me be more relaxed as a sales agent and then capitalize on the opportunity in the household per se. Does that answer your
Yeah,
question?
definitely. What type of programs have you taken in the past for advanced markets? And I guess I guess you kind of just told me your experience, but what's been the biggest difference or differentiator as to why you're like, I'm going all in on this?
I have bought almost every lead vendor under the sun. I bought batch leads, Kramer leads, uh, cold call lists. I've had live transfers at some point when I worked for one of my pink Cadillacs. This one is very unique. And it's very unique. My pink Cadillacs, I love throwing that out there. It's the
Love
politest
that.
way to not name drop. Um, I say that these leads are completely different because one, they're already pre-booked. That was
Mhm.
that was the whole buying point for me. I didn't even have to see how happy these people were to talk to me when I was talking with Shay. It's already pre-booked and it's on my calendar. That makes it easy for me to not lock down an appointment. So it's already there. It's on my calendar. I just need to show up. I capitalize on that because when I reach out to them, I already got the phone number. It provides if I could share my screen, actually, I don't have it up, but on the Calendly, they give you their own link. Here are the buying clues. Here's their age. Here's their investment range. So I already know a profile of the person I'm going in with. I also, at the same time, having their age, I can understand, well, it might be a little ageist in a sense, but I can understand where they're going to be a little bit more comfortable on. For somebody that's a little bit younger or more adept, if I can figure that out on the phone just by listening to them, I'll give them a Zoom link. All of these I'm handling on Zoom. I'm not doing phone calls with them. I do
Yeah.
that with the intention because I'm sharing my screen to put points, but I want them to share their screen too.
Yeah.
If we're doing a phone call, like if you and I were in person, it's going to be easier for you to hang up the phone because you don't see my face. There's no association with that. So I'm doing the Zoom links because with having that Calendly link, already having them pre-booked and me just jumping into a Zoom call to talk to people, that was the biggest advantage. But I would say it's out of the 25 batch, I had 22 that showed up. So it was pretty good turnover rate. If I
Yeah.
take that in comparison with every freaking lead batch I bought in the country, right, from ranging from live transfers to cold calls to whatever, uh, I had the mindset of how many can I dial versus how many appointments can I get. Now it's a game of dials. I don't have that anymore. That was the worst
Yeah.
possible thing that I could think. I'm assuming that answered the question, but yeah, that was the biggest benefit
Definitely.
was having them pre-booked.
Um, for the folks that are just joining the program, what's the biggest piece of advice that you would give them right now?
I tie it back to advantageous growth. These are advanced markets. These are not for the faint of heart. They're very easy sales, but at the same time, it's very easy with you having a good network of individuals to lean on. I'd get with a coach immediately. I came in and I met with you and Wes because I was like, listen, I love this. I already have the coaching background. If I can give other folks and other agents what, I would want initially into that, that's going to be more successful. And that's a win-win. I'm getting
Yeah.
the significance of coaching. You guys are getting more leads. The agents are getting more sales. But the main thing that I'd say is before you take your first appointment, make sure you already have your calendar set up. Make sure you already have a list of the companies that you have a game plan for. Make sure you have a network and a coaching agent or somebody that's on hand. I have a OSHIT moment, which is when I call one of the financial advisors when I'm like, I have no idea where this is going to go. And I'm adept. I like to say that in the humblest way. But I'll call them and say, hey, listen, I have an individual I'm going to network with. I want them to listen in. They're my financial advisor or my financial professional. And I bring them on the call, and then they'll also do some fact finding. Network with those people prior. If these are the first time you've taken leads like this and you don't really know what to expect, again, they're pension reviews. You just have to come in, see what they got, be conversational. And if you need coaching, atmosphere, stuff like that, lean on the people around you. If you're doing this by yourself, you're not going to be successful. And if you are, you're a beast. So I couldn't do it.
Yeah.
So
You mentioned earlier that you use IULs for IBC. I know for a fact there is going to be some whole life Nazis in the comments. Why do you do that? And maybe just to put your opinion as to why you structure it with IUL rather than whole life. Just kind of go off topic from the lead thing. I know that there's going to be some comments in the comment section of like, why does he do that? So maybe you want to back up that claim. Or please
I have a presentation that I put together, and I'll say this. If you leverage whole life for IBC, it's because you don't know how to use IULs. I'm just going to say that out there. If that pisses you off, I'm sorry. Talk to me. Have a conversation with me. Because there's a couple companies you can use. For example, the royal family and the Rockefeller families, their main policy source are not self-driven whole life policies. It hasn't been for 58 years. The royal family is built on a European company, and that's an IUL structure. I use IULs over whole life for a lot of reasons. One, whole lives are generated off dividends. Those dividends I haven't seen higher than 6 or 7% in years. The highest one that I actually noticed was Northwestern Mutual, which is at 5%, but back in the 80s, they were at 11%. They're attainable and they're understandable, right? They're easy to assume that they're going to credit to the account. At the same time, it's also about how the liquidity is going to work. Some whole life just goes solely off dividends. I make the joke and I say, hey, who's Blockbuster? I don't know who Blockbuster is anymore. So if I put all my investments in a whole life company, like let's say Mutual of Omaha, and I take that structure for whole life, or I use a Northwestern account, I don't know whether it be in 50 years. I don't know what their dividend rates are going to be, but I know that the S&P is going to have a good historical return, or Bloomberg or PIMCO. I don't use the traditional approach with IULs. The reason I'm writing the book that I am is because I use a global index. I use something that benefits on S&P, cash, Chinese exchange, and European exchange. And then I do a 50-50 with one that takes S&P, cash, Russian exchange, and Canadian exchange. So I'm getting an Axis and Allies if you're a history buff, or the yin and yang atmosphere. The loans are very important to take into account. Loans are variable with whole life. You'll have between 5 to 9% most cases. I leverage an IUL that has a fixed 5% participating. Money's outstanding in a loan, cash is still going to accumulate. It'll pay off the loan or pay back. Not pay off. That's an unrealistic one, but it'll pay back a portion of it. The IUL I also use, I created a structure where I'm taking a participating loan for 70% of the valuation. I sandbag the numbers by like 30%. So I illustrate a 6% return. The actual performance is about 9.6. At 65, I'm creating annuities for myself. Because let's be honest, right? I don't want to work when I'm 70. I'm probably going to sell my insurance brokerage and all my clients. That's the mindset a lot of agents don't take into account. I have all these annuity leads 20 years down the road because I'm going to basically tool a participating loan and create a GLIA or a pension mimic. Mm-hmm. But that's a main reason why I take those routes. Does that answer your question?
Yes.
Kind of. If you're a whole life Nazi, I'd say you pull your illustration, I'll pull mine. You show me yours, I'll show you mine. We'll lay them together, and I'll see which one has the better rate of growth. If you want to take that route. But I say that because you probably have the opportunity to do an IUL now. You just need to know which company is going to be the best usage for it. I've only known two. There's probably 250 out there.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a good one.
So we get a lot of people that are like, oh, that's an expensive lead, because some states are discounted, right? If we have a lot of flow in them. I don't know if we have very many right now, but you're ranging, on a low end 75, on a high end $95 an appointment. And so to somebody that's just maybe getting into advanced markets, looking for a predictable way to get conversations, or somebody that has been doing advanced markets, some guys are spending $200, $300 an appointment for something that's not ultimately as tangible, and still is just a lead in that regard. Who would you not recommend to this program coming in? Because maybe it's a cash flow situation, maybe it's just lack of knowledge, but what would that archetype of an agent be if you had to describe one?
I almost have to take my coach hat off, because I look at people for people. When I was a hiring individual or a hiring supervisor, even if you come in with all the money and all the tools, I don't want you to spend money on these leads if you're going to bomb it. That would be what I'd say to anybody. You'd have to have the knowledge base, but at the same time, being advantageous over growth. I'll run right back to that. You have to be passionate and understand that when you go into this, it's no bees, moans, and complaints, right? You can't whine about it. You take a fall, you get back up, run to the next one, let's build. Some people, like I had an agent, we actually had the experience, that's how I network with you guys. They had the leads, they didn't take the leads, they didn't do them as they were instructed because they didn't take into account the active listening component. They asked for a refund. I was like, okay, well, we can take that route if you wanted to, but if you're a newer agent and you don't have this range and you don't have a network, don't take these leads. When I say a network, I'm not talking a network of clients, a network of people to lean on. Again, that ties back to the IMO. That's 95% of my business closing is because of people in my network. I have other insurance agents that I work with. There's a common phrase that I heard from one of my first pink Cadillacs, and it was 50% or 100% of zero is zero, but 50% is something, right? If you got to split cases, you got to split cases at the end of the day. You got to bring on somebody that's a little bit more advanced. It's better than losing it ultimately.
Yeah.
If you're not somebody who's advantageous over your growth, or you take more of a negative approach when something isn't as it seems, instead of building upon it and taking advantage and capitalizing on opportunity, don't take them. Is that vague? Sure. Not everybody's going to stand in front of it and be like, you know what, that's me. I'm the person who's always negative. If you find yourself in a position where you're hungry, but the actions aren't following through on that, again, don't take them. Stick to the live transfers. It's a little bit more fluid because you get a batch of these leads. You got to close business on these. If you are also, too, if you are someone who needs source of immediate funds, these aren't going to have the same returns as if you're slinging whole life or final expense over the phone. I say that in the sense because an annuity has a suitability period. That's what, 14 days?
Mm-hmm.
There's a 1035 exchange. If it's not liquid cash, that's another 7. And then probably another 4 or 5 for getting paid. So we're talking a month on nutrition for nurturing the leads of the suitability aspect. If it's final expense, okay, if you're closing final expense on there, in my onboarding videos, I have them mostly put together, just waiting on some like final pieces of it. But I talk about Cobra a lot in these. If you're not familiar with Cobra, windfall elimination provision, know them before you go into these. Because Cobra is what sells my quick final expense if I need some cash, or my critical illness policies. Cobra sells my IULs whenever I find out they're only putting 5 or 6% in their 401k. These type of things. That part, so the advantageous of growth, all right, if you need the liquidity immediately, you might want to take a different approach, okay?
Yeah.
But you also want to be familiar over those 2 terms, Cobra and the windfall elimination provision. That should be all, at least in the onboarding videos.
So say somebody's taking our live transfers right now, they're probably doing a lot of full-time, maybe 4 to 6 hours a day on the live transfers. Would you suggest maybe because they're bringing in cash flow, would you suggest or not suggest maybe they take a couple appointments and space them out as they go, so they know they're having some income coming in, but they also have the leniency of learning down the road? Would you suggest that or not? Or is this something that you should just dive straight into and give it your all, so at least you're not, half in, half out?
I'll be honest with you. So it's all based on schedule. So I can say I can only take one of these a day. It's a batch of 25 or batch of 20 or whatever you want, right? Whatever it may be
Yeah.
that's based on today's videos. If I say I can only take one a week, I can only take one a week, but I'm getting my 25. Okay. So
Yeah.
if that takes 4 or 5 months to get them, so what? I'm in the comfort of my home. I'm not meeting people. These are people in other states. If you're taking live transfers now and you have the opportunity to close some whale cases, all of these that I'm closing, I mean, 98K in commissions are me closing 5 policies.
Yeah.
That's a 25% closure overall. I mean, I closed 68% because I'm throwing in these little final expenses, but 5 of those are primarily in whale cases. If you want to think of chargeback prevention, because that's a big concern that we might have in the live transfer field. Chargeback
Yeah.
protection, whale cases, big wins. If you're taking live transfers, use this as supplement. It's not that bad. I'm always a return kind of guy. So if I made 10,000, 2,000 is going to leads, or even almost 3,000 if I have the cash. Use them as supplement because again, these take time to nurture. But I think of it as a win. If I'm working my live transfers, because when I was at one of the pink Cadillacs, I'd have calls from 8 to 8. I'll take calls, and then let's say I put free time between lunch of 12 to 3 p.m., and I'm putting one of these appointments in there. Again, these are happy people. These are people who just like, here's my retirement account. Here's everything that I have in all my liquid assets. I'm a millionaire. I just don't know how I got there. It makes you feel good in that sense. So I would say absolutely take them as supplement. These are whale cases if you have them. You just have to find the opportunity. And again, that comes from, I guess, having a little bit of the understanding, but knowing what questions to ask.
Yeah.
Does
And
that
with you having some understanding of what the coaching aspect of the program is looking like, can an FE agent just walk in here and start closing with the supports that even we give them, not just maybe their IML, but even the supports that we will be giving and give? Can somebody that's just been typically simplified issue walk in here and start learning about this?
Yeah.
And closing.
I mean, at the end of the day, this is a sales environment. We're making commission. It's a sales environment. If you're, I'll throw it out there like this. If you're closing above 45% in FE, you are a beast of a sales agent. That's a churn and burn environment. These are people who are above ages of 60, a little bit more or tech adverse. They like the phone call aspect. That type of client in itself is going to be a little bit more skittish. If you're closing business in that, the abilities to learn and develop in this environment will come like that. Again, these leads. I've never done a pension review in my life. I was final expense batch leads, or I network with real estate investors, or I go to like farmers markets. That was my lead generation. So I come into this and I watch the videos that you guys put together, and I was like, okay, all right, I see where they're going with this. I take my first appointment, and I have somebody that's like, hey, I'm so excited to talk to you. I have 300,000 in my retirement account. What should I do with it? And you know how to fact find and pivot. It's easy. The training's right there. It shows you how to fact find. It shows you how to do objection handling, stall handling, right? Referral training, which is going to be huge for capitalizing another business. I'll give one for a nugget. If you're not calling beneficiaries to close additional deals, you're not doing this right. If you're closing a piece of business, you call that beneficiary. They're a younger individual. Right. The money's in the 30 to 50-year-olds. It's not in the 60s and plus.
Yeah.
So, but to answer your question directly, yeah, if you're closing at least 45% of final expense, and that's your main line of business, you can easily come transition into this environment because it's a very similar structure of sales. It's a little bit more laid back. It takes a little bit more nurturing. It's not as rapid, but if that's your style and you can take that, absolutely.
Very cool, man. For the folks that are just sitting on the fence, have been talking to maybe one of our program directors about joining the program, what do you say to them?
Call me. Okay, I'll step back because again, I'm not employed. I love these leads for what they are. That's the whole reason I'm doing this. I love talking about having these wins. I haven't closed 100K in a batch of leads ever. I've made about 200 or 300,000 a year, sure, but I haven't closed it just in a batch of them. So if you're on the fence about doing it, I have call recordings. I can run role plays. I can show you exactly what it is that you're involved in this. Because I'll give you my agent thinking and why I took probably what 5 or 6 appointments with Shay before I actually did this. I was on the fence. I'd ask questions. Shay was like, I've never heard of that or anything like that in my life because like I'm trying to understand it
Do
because
you
it's
want to buy them or
2000.
not?
Yeah, exactly. Right. You want to buy them or not, dude? Take the chance. That's ultimately what it boiled down to is a basis of trust. Because I bought leads from places where it's like, again, agents who only have one product that they know, but they're so good at upselling that.
Mhm.
I've had lead vendors tell me these are the best leads you'll ever take. You're going to close so much money, blah, blah, blah. And they don't go anywhere because they're crappy quality of leads. Okay. In this setting, again, if you're on the fence, I've taken them. I'll show you exactly what they look like. I'll run role plays with you. Worst case scenario, you at least get the experience. But if you're on the fence about spending 2,000, it's all about what you're going to generate out
Yeah.
of that. So the average annuity, just to get a good mindset, annuity commissions are 7%. If you've never closed an annuity in your life, it's the easiest piece of business you can do. 7% of whatever the invested amount is. You make a 100K annuity, that's 7,000. That's your money back in one case. That was my second appointment.
Yeah.
Again, if you're on the fence about it, just do a call with me. I'm in the Discord. I'm sure you
Yep.
can throw out my phone number or whatever. I'd be more than happy to talk to you.
If you're talking to a program director, just ask them, "Hey, can I talk to Dawson?" And gladly we'll get you booked in so you can chat with them.
That's what you
Dude,
guys did with me and Joel. Yeah.
Yeah. I really appreciate you jumping on. And I think a lot of lead vendors to keep their clients hidden. And it's like, no, dude, like I'll talk to this guy. He's having results. I'm not going to try to hide anything from you. Like this is what it is. I'm fully transparent. Talk to him. If it makes sense, it makes sense. A lot of people will just try to get the close and kind of keep the curtain closed. And I've always found that that just creates bad relationships and a client that's just going to want a refund anyways. So I might as well try to give you as much information up front without confusing you, right? Because too much information sometimes is bad information, but at least give you the helping hand. And I think that's what we've done with every program. Why we haven't really advertised our pension review appointments as much as we do our live transfers. Well, our live transfers, we have a coaching system dialed. Like we've been doing it for multiple years. We know exactly how we're going to be able to take you from A to Z. And this is what we've been working to develop, why we brought you on as well, is that we wanted a robust system that somebody walking in that's maybe not even close this at all in their career can walk in, review the trainings, have the support necessary for them to actually take this and start closing out the gate. Now, this is advanced markets. So the time of the sales cycle is a lot longer, right? So you need to have a decent amount of oomph in your account to know that you're going to be okay for a month or so while this cash is coming back in. I don't want to be taking the last dollar out of anybody's credit card or bank account. So please have a cushion in your bank before you reach out or go to move forward. But dude, I really appreciate you jumping on. I know you got some things to get going, doing, and probably some more appointments to start taking. So I'll let you get back to the phones, my man. But I appreciate it. Is there any last thing you want to just leave the audience with before I let you go?
Yeah. If you are, how can I say this in a PC manner? It's all
You don't
about
have to.
positivity.
You can swear. You can drop fuck bombs. Don't worry.
Okay. All right. Cool. I dig it. If you're a negative individual, it won't go that far, but if you're a negative individual and you put these limiting beliefs over yourself, you're never going to be successful. Even if you're making 100K, you're not making the 500K that you should. Those limiting beliefs are I can't, if, and, buts, or maybes. It's all about self-manifestation of what you can do. All right. Now that might be a little bit more of a happy koi fish, whatever you want to call it. But if you're standing in front of these things and you're making excuses for the actions, or if you and yourself may not be that adept individual who should be in this sales environment, if you're at least somebody who can be, actually, you can be an intellectual or a sponge. Intellectuals are people who create process. Sponges are the people that replicate. Thomas Edison instead of Tesla. All right. If you don't know about that, go 48 Laws of Power. But I talk about being a Thomas Edison, because if you have, like, Chase, how many people do you have closing over $100,000 a year? I'm going to assume in the live transfer is a good amount. Okay. Those people are on hand. And I believe there was, I can't remember his name. You just put a video out with the Q&A. A gentleman with nice earrings and he had a bow tie.
Blake? I think so. I'm sure.
I listened to maybe it was just recent. I listened to the Q&As in that. Those people, I guarantee you, if I called them or if I reached out to them and say, hey man, I got something I'm working on, can you help me out? I'll give them 10% for their apprenticeship. If I'm an apprentice and I'm learning something, I'll throw out 10% all day. Again, I'm making 90% of something I'd have or 0% of something I wouldn't. So I'll leave you with that. Limiting beliefs, there is no I can't, if and buts, and maybe. Stay confident in what you have. And if you need help, you need support, align yourself with the good people to do it. That's
Dude,
all I got.
I really appreciate you jumping on, man. I'll let you get back to your appointments, and we'll definitely have to have you on maybe monthly. I feel like you're a wealth of knowledge. That's why we brought you on as a coach. So anybody that's going to be joining the program or just joining the program or is in the program, you guys have access to Dawson. I think we're going to be doing like a weekly call. Maybe we'll blast it out as a live sometime soon too. But weekly training calls, just so that way you guys can get any questions answered, maybe help with cases, anything under the sun, advanced appointments. So again, I appreciate you jumping on, dude. And I also appreciate you taking the leap of faith with us, being coachable as well as just like a sponge. And then taking what you learned on your first call, implementing into your second call, learning from that second call, taking the 2 calls, adding into your third call. You're a sponge and you implement, which is a very rare quality, actually, believe it or not. Not a lot of people, they get stuck in their own ways. They get stuck in how they do things and how they should be, how things are so. Actually, I just got a text from a client right now who's saying we've explained to him countless times how to pivot for certain situations, and his expectation is that those things should be there. And I'm not going to get into the mix of it, but yeah, it is mindset.
It's
right?
Mindset. It's unrealistic expectations going into it. You have to be an individual who can capitalize on different types of selling points. If I want to be a strength-based individual and just hard sell, hey, debit or credit card, which do you prefer? It's $150 a month. I'd have to do it with the right client. But if I have someone who's asking questions, confirmation questions or explanatory questions, if you're stuck in your ways or if you think you know everything, I know that I don't know everything. I'm always willing to learn. I'm always willing to take on a different feat or take it a different approach. You don't know until you try it. And then you also won't know until you give it enough attempts. It takes 180 days to make a habit. But yeah, I will say a last piece. So I record a majority of my calls. I myself have trained experience through John Maxwell coach's course for trending analysis, in a sense. So if people record their calls and they want me to listen to them, I'll do that. I do it. It's free. I don't mind. I already do it on the side for 40 agents. I might as well. So if you want that feedback and you are advantageous of your growth and you want a little bit of, hey, yo, keep doing this, or yo, cut this out entirely, that's on the table. Cool, so man. Just send me a report call.
All right, get back to the phones, my man.
Man, I got to close some business. I appreciate you very much. Thank you.
Hey, no worries, pal. We'll see you soon. Cheers.
See you, Chase. Bye.